My boyfriend Jason is bi. That always scared me more than it should have. I was never worried about women. I was worried about him waking up one day and realizing he wanted a normal life. Wife, kids, backyard barbecues. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what happened. He married Anne. Lovely, powerful, sharp Anne. I was at the proposal dinner. I wore a smile, so tight it gave me migraines. Well, he asked me, days before popping the question, if I asked you to stop me, would you? I said no. Because I thought that was love. Letting go. Now here he was 3 years later, sitting on my couch in a hoodie that wasn't his, drinking my ginger tea like it could undo the ache in his chest. They were trying, he said, staring at the floor. For a baby. I didn't speak. Let him unravel it himself. She got promoted. Big deal. Huge job. They paused trying. But then she got pregnant anyway. Unexpected. And then he swallowed hard. She chose not to keep it. Silence. I'm pro-choice, he said quickly. This isn't about that. It's just, he rubbed his face. I saw a future. A version of us. I nodded. I didn't know what else to do. Hugging him felt like cheating. Saying, I'm sorry felt like a lie. He made his choice, right? But here's where I'm going to hell. Because 5% of me, okay, maybe 10%, maybe even 15%, hoped they'd break up. Not because I wanted him back in some fairy tale way. It wasn't about romance or candlelit reconciliation. It was the closeness. The way he leaned his head on my shoulder that night. The way he asked me, eyes half closed from exhaustion, why did you leave me? I could have said a million things. Instead, in my head, I screamed, I'm going to hell. He stayed. Not for a night. Not for the weekend. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of my ex-fiancé, sleeping on my couch, drinking my oat milk, doing my crossword puzzles, leaving the toilet seat up like nothing had changed since 2018. And somehow I let him. Because what was I supposed to do? Tell him to leave? Kick him out while he's still grieving the almost child he never got to meet? Or worse, admit I liked having him here? That part was harder. It was in the little things. The way he still took his coffee black with 2 sugars. How he knew to cue up Jeopardy at 7 p.m. sharp. The way he instinctively reached for the remote with his left hand like it had muscle memory just for my couch. I kept boundaries at first. He got the couch. I got the bed. We didn't talk about us. We didn't talk about it. We just existed in this gray zone. Not friends, not lovers, not exes, just something tangled. On day 9, he cooked. I came home to spaghetti, garlic bread, wine already breathing on the counter. What's this? I asked. He shrugged. Felt like old times. Yeah, that was the problem. That night we sat on opposite ends of the couch like polite strangers until he leaned his head back and asked, do you ever think about it? I looked at him. About what? Us. The version of us that didn't fall apart. I wanted to lie. Say no. Say I'd moved on and wasn't holding on to some faded Polaroid of our past taped inside my chest. But I couldn't. Yeah, I said. He closed his eyes. Me too. And there it was. The tension. The humming electric cord strung between us. Unplugged, but still buzzing. It terrified me. Because even if nothing happened, something was happening. Every glance. Every shoulder brush in the kitchen. Every late-night cup of tea turned into something thicker, heavier than it should be. He cried again 2 nights later. He was brushing his teeth and suddenly just broke down. I wanted to name her Zoe, he said. I don't know why. It just felt right. I held him because how could I not? I let him sob into my shirt, my arms around him like I was the last place he still belonged. And for a second, I imagined a world where this was ours. Where Zoe was ours. And I hated myself for it. Because no matter how much I wanted to be his soft place to land, I wasn't sure I could survive it twice. I didn't mean to watch him sleep, but some nights I couldn't help it. He snored like a bear, always had. But now it was quieter, sadder somehow. Like his lungs didn't want to wake up before his heart did. I'd stand in the hallway with a glass of water I didn't need, listening to that rhythm. Part of me wanted to go in, shake him, yell, why are you here? The other part wanted to crawl in beside him and just exist for a while in that fragile, suspended quiet. It came to a head on day 16. We were folding laundry like a married couple who actually liked each other. And he looked at me and said, do you think I made a mistake? I didn't answer. He asked again, softer, leaving you. Do you think it was a mistake? There it was. The moment. That door opening a crack, wide enough to see the life I'd almost had. The one with joint tax returns and porch lights and quiet Sunday mornings in matching bathrobes. And I wanted to say yes. I wanted to scream it, to grab him and say, of course it was a mistake. I was your future, and you let me go like I was yesterday's shirt. But I didn't. Instead, I said, I don't think you left me. I think you chose someone else. There's a difference. His face crumbled, and then he kissed me, just like that, in the middle of my laundry room. A kiss that tasted like regret and old promises and maybe still love. I kissed him back. Of course I did. Because I'm human. Because I'm weak. Because I'd waited 3 years for that mouth and still knew every curve of it. But the second it deepened, I pulled away like he'd burned me. No, I said, you don't get to do that. You don't get to wreck her and me. He stepped back. I didn't mean yes, you did. And maybe I did too. But we're not those people anymore. He didn't sleep in my apartment that night. He walked for hours. Came back around 5 a.m., looking like a ghost. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know, I said. But sorry doesn't unkiss a kiss. Sorry doesn't stop the guilt from clawing up your throat when you look in the mirror and see someone capable of wanting someone who isn't yours. And the worst part? That kiss? It didn't just wake something up in me. It made me want him, want the life we almost had. Want to believe this messy moment could somehow be clean if we just kept kissing. But life's not a movie. And I'm not the guy who gets the dramatic, sweeping romance. I'm the guy who gets the aftermath, the silent coffee, the unspoken tension, the weight of a kiss that never should have happened. So yeah, this is my drama now. And somehow, it's worse than any gay drama I've ever been in. I kept telling myself this would pass. That one day he'd pack his bag, hug me goodbye, and say thanks for the temporary shelter. That he'd go home, maybe to therapy, maybe back to her, and I'd go back to my quiet life of solo takeout and true crime podcasts. That's what I told myself. But then he made dinner. It was just pasta. Overcooked. Too much garlic. But he cooked it. For me. Said something like, you used to love this. Remember? I remembered. And I hated how easily we fell back in a rhythm. How naturally he moved around my kitchen. How he still knew which drawer I kept the spatula in. There were little moments like that all week. He'd hum when he folded laundry. He'd crack stupid jokes during commercials. He'd fall asleep on my couch with one arm behind his head like he used to, like the years hadn't happened. And I didn't stop him. One night, he opened up again. He'd had 2 beers. Not drunk, but warm and loose. She said I was being irrational, he murmured. About the pregnancy, that I was making it about me. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust myself to speak. I said I understood, that it was her body and her choice, but part of me was already imagining holding a baby. Our baby. And then suddenly, it wasn't real anymore. And I had no say. Just silence. I sat next to him, close enough that our shoulders brushed. The TV flickered in front of us, but we weren't watching it. Then he turned. Do you ever think about it? Us? I turned to him, but I couldn't meet his eyes. Of course I do. He nodded slowly. I think about it all the time. About how I messed it up. It wasn't just you, I said quietly. I ran too. You asked me to stay, and I didn't. He looked at me like I'd confessed something massive. So why didn't you? Why did you leave? My breath caught. Because I thought it was the right thing to do. I thought you'd be happier with her. Safer. And now, I didn't answer. I couldn't. The silence between us stretched out, loaded with 1,000 unsaid things. He didn't push. Maybe he knew I wasn't ready, or maybe he wasn't either. Instead, he leaned his head back and closed his eyes. I listened to his breathing settle, slow and steady, and wished the ache in my chest would do the same. He stayed another week. I started calling in to work more than I should have. He noticed. You don't have to babysit me, he said one morning, halfway through folding my hoodie. It's not that, I lied. Then what is it? It's complicated. He gave me a look, that kind of half-smile, half-squint that meant he knew I was full of it. Nothing's ever really that complicated. You either want me here or you don't. And that's the thing, I did. God help me, I did. But I also hated that I did. That night, he got a text from her. I saw his face shift. He didn't show me the screen, just stared at it for a long time, like the words were burning through his skin. What is it? I asked. She wants to talk, he said. Do you want to? He shrugged, but not casually. It was a heavy shrug, like it hurt just to lift his shoulders. I don't know. Part of me thinks I should. The rest of me wants to stay right here. He didn't go. Not that night. Instead, he sat with me in the dark, a glass of wine in his hand, and we watched some documentary about volcanoes. But we weren't watching. He was distracted. I was worse. Every time our hands brushed reaching for the popcorn, something in me sparked. You're not a safe place, I blurted. What? You said people want safety. You're not safe. You're chaos. You're grief. You're regret. He didn't flinch. And yet here I am. I know. He put the glass down. You want me to go? I don't know. I whispered, ashamed of how fast it came out. We didn't kiss that night, but we fell asleep on the couch, his head resting against my shoulder. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, the kind of day where the sky couldn't decide whether to rain or shine, and I had just come back from getting groceries. Jason was in the shower, humming some old 90s alt-rock track like we weren't tangled up in a web of grief, guilt, and temptation. Then someone knocked. A loud, purposeful knock. Not the kind you hear from neighbors or food delivery. The kind that says, I know what I'm about to walk into, and I don't care. I opened the door. And there she was, his wife. Her eyes were bloodshot, hair pulled back tight like a noose, and she was holding something in her hand. A piece of mail, maybe my name on the envelope. Her lips curled into a practiced smile, one she'd probably worn to corporate meetings and weddings. Well, this is cozy. I froze. My fingers tightened around the grocery bag like it could shield me from what was coming. I figured this was the address. You think I didn't notice his old hoodie was missing? You think I don't know how he disappears when he's hurting? Her voice cracked, but only slightly. Jason stepped out of the hallway, towel around his waist, damp hair mid-sentence. Hey, did you grab? He saw her. Everything went still. I saw it hit him. Not like a punch, more like drowning. His face went pale. The towel slipped an inch lower on his hips, but no one noticed. Not really. And didn't scream. Didn't cry. She just stared. You left me, she said, eyes never leaving his. You left me, and I let it go. I gave you space. I gave you time. I even told myself maybe you were depressed. Maybe the miscarriage broke something in you. But you came here, and you're staying with him. Jason stepped forward, like he could stop the freight train that was about to wreck us all. It's not what you think. She laughed. Sharp. Hollow. Jason, it's exactly what I think. I should have said something. I should have told her nothing happened. I should have lied even, but I didn't. Because everything in her eyes told me she already knew. This is what you wanted? Huh. She turned to me. You waited, like a parasite, waiting for your chance to crawl back into his bed. I flinched, not because she was wrong, but because deep down I'd wondered the same thing. Jason reached for her arm. Please, let's talk. Talk. She shook him off like he was filth. There's nothing left to talk about. You were supposed to be my person, and instead, you ran back to the one who walked away. And then she left, just like that. No door slam. No tears. Just the echo of her heels on the steps and the scent of her perfume lingering in the hall like a ghost. Jason sat on the floor, towel still around him, soaked in silence. I didn't mean for this, he whispered. I believed him, but it didn't matter. We had crossed the line, and now there was no going back. Jason didn't speak much after that day. Not really. He went through the motions, showered, ate, scrolled through his phone. But the Jason I'd once known, the one who used to quote bad movies and steal my coffee, was gone. In his place was a man unraveling. I gave him space. Try not to hover. But some nights I'd hear him crying softly in the guest room. Other nights, he'd crawl into my bed like a sleepwalker. Not for anything physical, just to lie there beside me, tangled in sheets and silence, holding on to something that felt like safety. We both knew it was a bad idea. But grief is a sneaky thing. It makes bad ideas feel like lifelines. 3 days after and caught us, Jason's brother called, said, and had packed up and left. No bouvier. Just a ring in the dish, a suitcase missing, and a note. Tell him not to follow me. Jason didn't cry that day. He just sat on my fire escape, staring out at the city like he was waiting for it to apologize. I ruined everything, he said after hours of silence. I wanted to say he didn't, that this was inevitable, that maybe he never really understood in the way she said she did. But instead I asked, "Do you want her back?" He looked at me like I'd just handed him a mirror, then shrugged. "I don't know. I miss who I was with her. Like I was someone better." That hit harder than I expected. Was I a mistake? I asked before I could stop myself. He turned to me, eyes rimmed with red. "No, you were real. You were the only thing that ever made me feel like I didn't have to pretend. But you married her. I thought I could forget you." His honesty was a punch I wasn't ready for. We didn't talk for a while after that. Not really a fight, just distance. Like we'd both stepped away from a fire we got too close to. Weeks passed. Jason moved out, said he needed to clear his head. Got a place a few blocks down. We still texted sometimes. He still brought me coffee on Sundays. But it wasn't the same. He was rebuilding his life. I was trying to remember who I was before he knocked on my door. Then one day he called. "Hey, I started therapy." "Oh, yeah, I needed it." And's not answering my calls. She filed for separation. "It's probably over." "I'm sorry." He paused. "I'm not." Silence. Then he said, "Can I see you?" Just to talk. That night, we sat on my couch again, just like the first week he came back. Only now there were no tears. Just two men who had seen the worst of each other and were still here. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, "about how I blamed you for everything I couldn't say out loud. About how I used you to feel something when I was numb." I nodded. "I knew. I'm not here to ask for a second chance," he added. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I believed him. And for the first time in months, it felt like maybe we could be something again. Not lovers. Maybe not even best friends. But honest. "I think I'm going to move," he said. "Start fresh. Somewhere quieter. Maybe Maine." I laughed. "You hate the cold." "I hated a lot of things. Doesn't mean I can't try them now." He stood up. "Come visit sometime. We'll drink terrible wine and complain about the locals." "Deal." At the door, he turned. "You saved me, you know, even when I didn't deserve it." "No," I said, shaking my head. "You saved yourself. I just left the door open." He smiled. Then he left. After Jason left, the silence was loud. It wasn't the kind of silence that hurt. Not anymore. It was the kind that lingers after a thunderstorm, when everything is wet and quiet and a little bit cleaner than before. I rearranged the apartment. Moved the couch he used to crash on. Took down the Polaroid we took together at Pride 3 years ago and slid it into a drawer. Not because I wanted to forget, just because I needed to make space for something new. Grief doesn't only show up after death. Sometimes it shows up when a chapter ends without a proper punctuation mark. When someone you loved, and maybe still love, walks out the door for the last time, not in anger, but with peace. And it leaves you wondering, what do I do with all the love that's still here? I started waking up earlier. Running again. I call my mom more. I started dating, not seriously. Just dinners, coffees, a few long walks through the park where I try to explain why my last relationship was so hard to define. "He was married?" one guy asked, eyes wide. "Yeah," I said. But it wasn't like that. And that was the hardest part. Trying to explain a story that wasn't mine alone to tell. One night, months later, I got a postcard. No return address. Just a sketch of a lighthouse in Maine and 2 words, "Still grateful." I sat with it for a long time. Not sad, not longing, just still. Sometimes people pass through your life like comets. Brilliant, fast, impossible to ignore. They don't stay, but they leave a mark. Jason left a mark. He reminded me of how deep I could love, how far I'd go to protect someone, and how sometimes letting someone go is the kindest thing you can do for both of you. Now I'm okay. Not perfect, not always happy, but okay. I'm learning to love without losing myself. I'm building a life where I don't have to wait for someone to knock on my door, crying, to feel needed. I'm enough, even when I'm alone. And when the nights get quiet and the city hums just right, I sometimes whisper into the dark. Wherever you are, I hope you're okay too. Love isn't always about grand gestures or lasting forever. Sometimes it's about showing up for someone in their darkest moment, even when it hurts. And even more importantly, sometimes it's about knowing when to let go. The narrator learns that you don't need to be someone's ending to be a meaningful part of their story. Letting go with love can be just as powerful as holding on. If you've ever held on to someone longer than you should or questioned your role in someone else's heartbreak, know this. You are allowed to feel deeply without having to fix everything. You are allowed to walk away with dignity. And above all, your worth is not tied to who stays or leaves. It's in how you carry yourself after. Have you ever been in a situation where someone from your past returned and stirred up old feelings? How did you handle it? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone else who's going through the same thing. Lightbulb, and if you found this story powerful, emotional, or even a little too real, hit that follow or subscribe button to support this channel. It means the world and helps us keep telling stories that matter. Rainbow Red Heart, we've got more coming. Raw, honest, human. Until then, take care of your heart. It's braver than you think.